Hello besties, welcome back to my channel. My name is Tori if you're new, and we are talking about my 10 before the end TBR. I literally can't believe it's the end of the year, and these are the 10 books that I'm hoping to read before the end of 2024. Absolutely insane. I could only come up with 9 on my own that I like really want to read, and then I asked on Instagram if y'all had any recommendations for like that last book. So we'll go through the 9 that I've chosen, and then I have a little Christmas mug, my favorite Christmas mug, that's filled with all of your recommendations that you've provided. So we will pick one, and this will be our 10th and final one that we will do. So if you submitted a book recommendation, thank you so much. Let's get into it. Grab a coffee, tea, water, snack. Let's talk about some books. So one that I did put on here because we are going to be reading it for the Who Did This To You book club in December. We're currently doing our read/reread of Fourth Wing for November. So for December, we're gonna be doing our Iron Flame read or reread in the book club. It's on Fable. It's always linked down below if you would like to join us in preparation for the 3rd book that's coming out in January, one of my most anticipated for 2025. So Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros is on this list. I'm very curious how my reread is going to go for this one because my first read was not my favorite. However, the ending of this book was my favorite part of the book. Not because I wasn't enjoying it, I was happy for it to be over, but I did really like the little cincher that we got at the end, and we got some big like facts right at the end. And so I'm curious upon reread, knowing what I know now, if I'm going to kind of process and like take this a little differently than I did the first read through. My goal with all of these books was to have like just really fun, fast reads so that my December I wasn't cramming in a lot of like more like heavy books or like very in-depth books. I wanted them to be pretty light and fun. This is absolutely one of those books for me. So this is Spectacular by Stephanie Garber. The Caraval series and the Once Upon a Broken Heart series are some of my absolute favorites. I love a romantasy fairy tale world. Stephanie Garber is my absolute queen. I love her with my whole entire heart and soul. Spectacular is like a holiday special with the characters from the Caraval series. I'm really hoping that Evangeline and Jax show up from the Once Upon a Broken Heart series as well, and they have a little cameo too. But I'm gonna be so happy to be back with Donatella and Scarlet Dragna. I just cannot wait for this. It's also like so Christmassy and so cute, especially the back too. It's very cute. Look at them. So I can't wait to get to this. Next is one that I have been seeing literally everywhere. I haven't read it yet, but I ordered a physical copy of it to be prepped, and that is Metal Slinger by Rachel Schneider. I know very little about this book. I really don't need to because some of my most trusted booktube and bookstagram girlies have already raved about this. Our main character is taking like her rite of passage. She has an encounter with an enemy soldier. Her rite of passage doesn't go the way that she had anticipated. There's growing rumors of a rebellion. Bryn and her closest friends promise to stick together, but when an unexpected visitor arrives, Bryn's loyalty will be tested as she learns a world of magic and treachery. Once her enemy, always her enemy, right? But the dark knowing eyes of a stranger make her question everything, including her heart. This is a chunky one. I am anticipating getting to it this month in November. It's on my November TBR. Flame and Sparrow by S.M. Gaither. I know that this looks massive and it's crazy. S.M. Gaither's writing style is so fast-paced. It's very suck you in. It's very, you want to keep reading. I tend to have one more chapter syndrome with her books, especially the Shadows and Crowns series. And so this is her prequel series to Shadows and Crowns. It has to do with flawed gods. They act very human, but they're also very spiteful. And so our main character, Karis, wakes up to the sight of a divine creature dying outside of her home. 2 weeks later, her sister disappeared, leaving nothing but a trail of blood in her wake. She's convinced that the gods are responsible for taking her sister, potentially her sister's death, and she makes it her mission to infiltrate the gods' kingdom, but like also palace, get close to them, and kill them. It's one god in particular whose name is Draven. one of her world's most powerful deities. I mean, we love a vengeful queen. Next is a book I know that is absolutely going to fly. These pages will turn themselves, and that is Pits and Poison by R. Rada. This is the second book to Peaches and Honey, which I binge read at the start of this month in November. This is the second book, I think the final book. I think it's a duology. Tell me why on every chapter, every page of Peaches and Honey, I was on the verge of tears. Like, it was such, in a good way, like it was such an emotional book. I had such an emotional connection to that story and those characters. It was incredible. In Peaches and Honey, we follow our main character, Anna, who is granted immortality by eating like a peach. And then there is this immortal god who kind of follows her throughout her extremely long, infinite lifespan. A lot of the first book, we get to follow Anna and just experience her adjusting to being immortal, going from being human and having a very finite lifespan to just having infinite time. And she's such a caring and empathetic person that living through the world, it's kind of punctuated by all of the really horrible things that have happened through history. And Anna is there, and she's such that caring person that she really tries to help people through a lot of these massive tragedies, like the Black Plague. She like volunteers to be a nurse through the Black Plague and stuff like that. Like, it's just so emotional. And then right at the end of that first book is where we really start to focus on a romance. And so I'm hoping that in the second book we get a little bit more of the romance, and we had some big detail drops right at the end of that first book. So we're going to get to learn a little bit more about these immortal beings that grant immortality. I gave the first book 5 stars, and so I'm so excited to read this conclusion. Next is a continuation of a series that I have been reading on Kindle Unlimited's Fate of the Sun King. This is the like Trials of the Sun King series. So I read the first 2. These are such fast reads. I don't know if I will want to end up purchasing this series because the first book I think I gave 3 stars. Second book I gave 4 stars. I definitely liked it a little bit more because the love interest in the first one is not it. We do get a like little switcheroo, I think, in the series, and so the second book definitely captured me a lot more. It's just a very fun, fast-paced series. I feel like I've been saying that for all of these books because that was my goal with creating this TBR. But truly, these books read so fast. They're also not super long either. There's a lot of romance. It tends to happen quite quickly, so if you want something that's really fun, that's going to be a bit spicy, but then also have a lot of action as well. I think that there is a good balance between action and romance in these books. The first book is extremely trial oriented, as the title says, and then we kind of move away from that in the second and third books. So I'm very curious to see where this is going. It's quite high stakes as well. I think that this will be the determining book of whether I want to finish it and complete it. Although I think that the final book was on the Goodreads Choice Awards in the romantasy category because the final book in this series came out this year. Another just like super spicy and really fun romantasy that I want to read is Woven by Gold. And that is by Elizabeth Helen, I believe. I had to punctuate some of these names, so I put E. Helen on my list. I think it's Elizabeth Helen. The first book in this is Bonded by Thorns. It is a Why Choose fantasy romance series. We have our main girly pop who is a human. She gets unexpectedly, like she goes through a thorn bush and ends up in Fairy. She gets taken prisoner, like voluntarily taken prisoner, and she's in this castle with 4 princes who all after dark turn into these crazy wolf creatures. As she gets to know them, things start happening. They are trying to break their curse because in Fairy, their magic is diminishing. There's a curse on the land, but then there's also a curse on them that forces them to be wolves. And if they find their one true love, they're able to break that curse. And so you can put the pieces together from there. It is so spicy. And the first book was a lot of like tension. We got some spicy scenes, but not with our main character. It was so stunning that I need to continue with it. These are so bingeable. Like, is there anything more bingeable than a super spicy fantasy romance book? No. Speaking of really fun, spicy romances, but not fantasy romance, I have Wild Love on this list by Elsie Silver. I am on a separate TBR, on my November TBR, reading Hopeless to finish out the Chestnut Springs series. So next on the docket for my Elsie Silver is Wild Love. This has so many tropes in it. It is like a millionaire or a billionaire. Ford Grant is the world's hottest billionaire. He is a single dad. He comes face to face with a young girl who claims he's her biological father. He didn't know that he had a daughter, and she's like a teenager at this point, a sullen 12-year-old. And then we have Rosie Belmont, who was living in the city. She comes back into town. She's like desperate for a job. It's giving similar setup to Heartless, except we have a billionaire trope thrown in here as well. I love Elsie Silver's writing. You can sit down and read this in like less than a day, to be honest. That's basically what happened to me with the Chestnut Springs series. And then continuing our cowboy romance. I haven't purchased this book yet. I went to my Barnes & Noble and they didn't have any in stock. I'm gonna have words with whoever orders their books, because I have a Barnes & Noble that's right down the street from my house and they never have the books that I want. So, literally so rude. But that is Lost and Lassoed by Lila Sage. It was so funny. So many of y'all, when I was asking for these book recommendations, we aligned so well. Like, it was books that I already had on this list that y'all were recommending to me. And I was like, we are same. Like, we have same brain. Y'all just get me. So it was really funny. Lost and Lassoed was one of these books that y'all were like, have you read this yet? Because you need to read it. And I was like, period. So yes, that is on this list. I did have it on this list. I love Lila Sage. I love the Chestnut Springs series and I love Elsie Silver, but if I'm totally honest, I think Lila Sage is like next level for me, because the way that Swift and Saddled took over my whole life. Same thing with Done and Dusted. Like, I just binge these books. So nothing sounds better. We follow Teddy Anderson, who doesn't have a plan. She's never needed one. She's always been more of a go with the flow type of girl, but for some reason the flow doesn't seem to be going her way this time. She's used to being a leader, but now she feels like she's getting left behind. She's wondering if the life she lives in the small town that she loves is enough for her anymore. And then Gus Ryder has a lot on his plate. He doesn't know what taking care of his family's 8,000-acre ranch or parenting his spunky 6-year-old daughter who is staying with him for the summer has in store for him. Gus has always been the dependable one, but when his workload starts to overwhelm him, he slips up and he has to admit that he can't manage everything on his own. Wait! This sounds really similar to like some of the tropes in Wild Love. Oh my gosh, I'm in for a treat, y'all. I didn't know that the single dad trope was something that I liked until I read Heartless, and like literally fell head over heels for those characters. They live in my mind rent-free. Cade is everything. We love him so much that these two books sound like they're going to be so incredible. So those are the 9 that I picked out. Let us pick our final prompt. I think there's one in here. No, there's 2 in here that I'm nervous about because of their page length. But we'll see. We'll see what we pick. Okay, we'll do this one. Ooh. Games Gods Play. I think that Mel was the one to recommend this one. I also think that this was on the Romantasy Goodreads Choice Awards for 2024. So very curious about this one. This is the first book in a new series called The Crucible. I think it has to do with a deadly competition. It's gods toying with the lives of mortals. I have never been favored by the gods, far from it thanks to Zeus. Living as a cursed office clerk for the Order of Thieves, I just keep my head down and hope the capricious beings who rule from Olympus won't notice me. Not an easy feat, given San Francisco is Zeus's patron city. I survive until the night I tangle with a different god, the worst god, Hades. How did I not know about this book? Like, to be honest, it sounds perfect for me. For the first time ever, the ruthless mercurial king of the underworld has entered in the Crucible, the deadly contest the gods hold to determine a new ruler to sit on the throne of Olympus. But instead of fighting their own battles, the gods need mortals to compete in their stead. So why in the underworld did Hades choose me, a sarcastic nobody with a curse on her shoulders, as his champion? Oh my god, that sounds so good! And also very fast-paced as well. So thank you so much for Games God's Play. And that is my 10 before the end TBR, friends. I hope that you enjoyed. If you did, please be sure to give this video a big thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel. It really helps to support my channel and I appreciate it so, so, so much. In the comments, please leave your like one book that you will be devastated if you don't get to before the end of the year. I will catch you in the comments and I will see you in my next one. Toodles!